of you who will be watching the tape or hearing the tape, the video and so forth. Traditional today that we complete a book, so we say these words. Kazak, Kazak, Venish Kazak. Be strong, and may we be strengthened.
Amen.
Amen. Well, we may read here in Genesis just a minute, but I want to go over to the book of Joshua, Yehoshua first before we go to Kings.
Okay.
In chapter 1 of the book of Yehoshua, because after all, this is where they've gotten them up. Remember, Moshe, with the Torah, brought the sons of Israel right up to the brink of the Jordan River. But Moshe and the Torah did not take them in to the promised land. Yehoshua is going to take them into the promised land. In the book of Yehoshua here in chapter 1, verse 1, after the death of Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, it came to pass that Yahweh spoke to Yehoshua ben Nun, Yehoshua, the son of the Eternal, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the sons of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moshe. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall stand before you all the days of your life. He doesn't say that nobody's going to ever come against you, but he said they won't stand against you. As I was with Moshe, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. We'll have to change the tape over. So again in verse 6 he commands Joshua, he said, be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. You know, in the last chapter of Ezekiel, we read where they're going to divide the land again. And it will again be done by Yehoshua. This is the symbol here. This Yehoshua gave them the land when they came into it. But notice in verse 7, now actually before we go to verse 7, go back to Deuteronomy 31. See, we're talking in the book of Yehoshua about Yahweh going over before the people, Yehoshua going over before the people. And here in Deuteronomy 31 in verse 3 it says, Yahweh Eloheka, he crosses over before you. He will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall dispossess them. Yehoshua himself crosses over before you, just as Yahweh has said. Yehoshua, the name itself means Yahweh is your deliverer. And who is the one that's crossing over? Yehoshua. Yahweh is your deliverer. We know the man in the flesh was not the ultimate Yehoshua, but he's a symbol, a picture, a type of the one to come. Going to lead us into the promised land. Go down and look at verse 7 in there in Deuteronomy 31. Then Moshe called Yehoshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which Yahweh has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it. Now go down to verse 23. Of this same Deuteronomy 31. Then he inaugurated Yehoshua ben Nun and said, be strong and of good courage, for you shall bring the sons of Israel into the land of which I swore to them, and I will be with you. We just got through reading, be strong, and may we be strengthened, okay? The whole thing is, we're going to be strong, and we're going to follow Yehoshua into the promised land. And as we go following Yehoshua, we walk according to the Torah of Yahweh, and we shall prosper as we go. Go back to book of Joshua there in chapter 1, verse 7. Only be strong and very courageous. Be strong, very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. The word prosper is a number 7919. The word means to be intelligent. That is to always make the right decision at the right time. Before we read verse 8, go to Psalm 14. In verse 2, Psalm 14 verse 2, he said, Yahweh looks down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek Elohim. Now go to Psalm 53. In Psalm 53, and in verse 2, he said, Elohim looks down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek Elohim. Hey, we just read that twice, didn't we? Go to Psalm 119. Verse 99. He says, I have more understanding than all my teachers, for your testimonies are my meditation. To meditate on means to be constantly in them. And go back to Proverbs in chapter 10. In Proverbs chapter 10, and in verse 19, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of wisdom, or literally heart in the Hebrew. Go to Proverbs 16. In verse 23. The heart of the wise teaches his mouth, and adds learning to his lips. Go to Proverbs 21. In verse 16. A man who wanders from the way of understanding will rest in the congregation of the dead, or the assembly of the dead. Go back to Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8. This book, this scroll, this sefer of the Torah shall not depart from your mouth. We just got through reading all those things about words in the mouth. Shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate or be constantly in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. The word success there is the number 7919. It's the same as the word prosper up in verse 7. The Hebrew word is the word sachal, to be intelligent, the best, prosper, to make the right decision at the right time. In verse 8, this book of the law, sefer is the word translated book or scroll of the Torah, which means instruction. So this scroll of the instructions for having life shall not depart from your mouth. What it's all about. So in verse 9, he says, have I not commanded you? Chazak, be strong and of good courage. That's what we say. Chazak, chazak, be strong, and may we be strengthened. Have good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for Yahweh Eloheka is with you wherever you go. In verse 10, then Yehoshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you will cross over this Yarden. Remember the word Yarden, it means the descender. So within 3 days you're going to go through the descender to go in to possess the land which Yahweh Eloheka is giving you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, Yehoshua spoke, saying, remember the word which Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, commanded you, saying, Yahweh Eloheka is giving you rest and is giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Yarden, but you shall pass or cross over before your brethren, armed, all your mighty men of valor, and help them, until Yahweh has given your brethren rest as he has given you. And they also have taken possession of the land which Yahweh Eloheka is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and enjoy, which Moshe, the Yahweh's servant, gave you on this side of the Jordan toward the sunrise. The tribes are supposed to help one another in order to take possession of that which was promised to us. He's reminding him that these tribes, Reuben, Gads, and so forth, they are to help their brothers to obtain their inheritance also, which only comes through obedience following Yehoshua. Verse 16, and they answered Yehoshua, saying, all that you command us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Only Yahweh Eloheka be with you as he was with Moshe. Whoever rebels against your command and does not heed your words and all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. You realize how many times it says be strong and of good courage in these verses we've been reading? Go back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. In verses 18 and 19. Yahweh is speaking through Moshe here in verse 18. He says, I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. Again, it's referring to Yehoshua. Yehoshua, the one who's going to lead them into the promised land here, after Moses died, is a symbol of the Yehoshua who's going to lead us all into the true promised land. Verse 19, he says, and it shall be, whoever will not hear my words, which he speaks in my name, I will require it of him. Go to Acts chapter 3. in Acts chapter 3. Down in verse 18, starting in verse 18. The writer of the book of Acts is talking to the people, and he's quoting a lot of things here from the Torah. And in verse 18 he said, "But those things which Yahweh foretold by the mouth of all his prophets, that the Mashiach, the anointed of Yahweh, would suffer, he is thus fulfilled. Repent therefore and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, so that times of refreshing may come from the presence of Yahweh. And that he may send Yehoshua, the Mashiach, the anointed of Yah, who was preached to you before, or proclaimed to you before, whom heaven must receive, until the times of restoration of all things, which Elohim has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. For Moshe truly said to the fathers," now he's quoting from Deuteronomy 18 where we just were, "Yahweh Eloheka will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear in all things, whatever he says to you. And it shall come to pass that every soul who will not hear that prophet shall be utterly destroyed from among the people." Messiah came, he said, "The words that I speak are not mine, but the one who sent me. He came speaking the words of the Father. Anyone who will not hear the words of that prophet shall be what? Shall be destroyed from among his people." The unforgivable sin is a sin of blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, blasphemy against the set-apart breath of Yahweh, the Word, which is Yehoshua. That's where our life and everything, completely is. Verse 24 in Acts 3 there, he says, "Yes, and all the prophets from Samuel and those who follow, as many as have spoken, have also foretold these days." He's saying, all of the prophets from Samuel have prophesied and foretold of the days of the Mashiach. If you're not looking for him in those prophecies, you'll never see him. But the scripture says that he will be found of those who seek him with all their heart and soul. Verse 25 he says, "You are sons of the prophets and of the covenant which Elohim made with our fathers, saying to Abraham, and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. To you first, Yahweh, having raised up his servant Yehoshua, sent him to bless you, in turning away every one of you from your iniquities," or turning you away from transgressions of the law, back in obedience to his word. What it's all about. Go with me to the book of Kings, in 1 Kings. In chapter 8. Starting in verse 57. This particular passage has specific application to the Feast of Tabernacles. As we were talking about the other day, during the time of the Feast of Tabernacles, and during the time when Solomon actually built the temple, and they feasted and they had all kinds of celebrations as it was completed, going up towards the end of it. And Solomon was praying for the people, and a lot of this chapter 8 is Solomon praying for his people. I would suggest you read it. It's exceptionally good. But here in verse 57 of 1 Kings 8, it says, "May Yahweh Eloheka be with us," or Yahweh Eloheinu, "as he was with our fathers. May he not leave us nor forsake us." That's exactly what he said to Yehoshua and those following him. "That he may incline our hearts to himself, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments which he commanded our fathers. And may these words of mine, with which I have made supplication before Yahweh, be near Yahweh our El, day and night, that he may maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel, as each day may require, that all the peoples of the earth may know that Yahweh is Elohim, there is no other. If the word Elohim means creator, then it says to know that Yahweh is creator and there is no other. Verse 61, let your heart therefore be loyal to Yahweh, our Elohim, to walk in his statutes and keep his commandments as at this day. Then the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifices before Yahweh. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offering, which he offered to Yahweh, 22,000 bulls and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the sons of Israel dedicated the house of Yahweh. On the same day the king consecrated the middle of the court that was in front of the house of Yahweh. For there he offered burnt offerings, grain offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings, because the copper altar that was before Yahweh was too small to receive the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings. At that time Solomon held a feast, and all Israel with him, a great congregation from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Egypt. Had plenty of food, but there were lots of people before Yahweh our El. 7 days and 7 more days. 14 days in all. So that was 7 days prior to the Feast of Tabernacles, 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles, and verse 66 says, on the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the king and went to their tents joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that Yahweh had done for his servant David and for Israel, his people. As we conclude this book of Deuteronomy, we're going to start back now, and we may do it again here this next Friday, this next 8th day. But I'd like to go back, and we're going to read Genesis chapter 1. Only it's tradition to do this when we finish Deuteronomy, to go back and read Genesis chapter 1. We'll get into it in much more depth again as we enter on into it. But maybe I can tantalize people a little bit. In the book of Genesis, Bereshit, in the beginning, Bereshit, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. $7225 is the number of the word Bereshit, or Reshit. And I would just give everybody a challenge now to look up that word and look at all the different scriptures which contain that word and see how it all fits. And then match up the 7225 in the Hebrew compares to 746 in the Greek. I think. Let's go over to the Gospel of John in chapter 1. $746, is that what I said? 746?
I think so.
Okay. 746 is a number for the word beginning in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with El, and the Word was El. We'll talk about this some more a little bit later. But going back to Genesis 1:1 now, in the beginning. Again, it can also mean the firstborn. So in the firstborn, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. That word spirit there is the number 7307. It is a Hebrew word ruach, and it means the breath. So the breath, or the word of Elohim, the word of the Creator, was hovering over the face of the waters. Go back to John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with El, and the Word was El. He was in the beginning with El. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. If he is the light, he is the light shining into the darkness, and men do not comprehend him because they don't know who or what the light is. Go back to Genesis. Verse 3. Then Elohim said, light be. I know our Bible says, let there be light, but the Hebrew it just says, light be. And light was. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning, first day, or day one, echad. Then Elohim said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus Elohim made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. This firmament which divides the waters above from the waters below, think of it as like a great giant eggshell around the earth that's solid in form, and there's waters above it and waters below it. In verse 8, Elohim called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning, Yom Sheni, second day. Then Elohim said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place. Let the dry appear, and it was so. And Elohim called the dry earth, and the gathering together the waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good. Verse 11, then Elohim said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth grass, the herb yielding seed according to its kind, the tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Elohim saw it was good. So the evening and the morning, Yom Shlishi, the third day. Verse 14, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. You notice in this verse it's not talking about the light that was created over in verse 3 when Elohim said, light be, and light was. That's not talking about having anything to do with the light of the sun or the moon or anything else. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw it was good. So the evening and the morning were Yom Arba'ah, fourth day. Then Elohim said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament or the expanse of the heavens. So Elohim created great sea creatures, and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw it was good. And Elohim blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were Yom Chamash, 5th day. Then Elohim said, Let the earth bring forth a living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth according to its kind, and it was so. And Elohim made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and Elohim saw it was good. Then Elohim said, Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So Elohim created man in his image. The word own is not in the text. In the image of Elohim he created him. Male and female he created them. Verse 28, Then Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. To have dominion means that you've been given a domain, and you have to become king over that domain, and then you have dominion over everything in that domain. Verse 29, Elohim said, See, I have given you every herb yielding seed which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Also, to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. Then Elohim saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were Yom Shishi, 6th day. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the 7th day Elohim ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. Then Elohim blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. We're going to stop right there at the end of verse 3. And of course, we're going to be picking up the whole thing in Genesis. In the next Shabbat when we meet, we'll get into a whole lot more detail that we haven't gotten into right now. This is a very, very short teaching today to complete the book of Deuteronomy. That concludes the teachings for this day. And those of you out on the telephone lines right now, we'll open that up into questions and answers and so forth. But I'm going to cut off the teachings on the all
callers are unmuted, Dennis.
Okay.